Welcome back to the episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. It's your favorite baby daddy, NJ, and today we want to talk about a subject that many men don't really talk about, but many men find themselves in, and that's the situation of becoming a stepfather. Nobody really goes into the situation saying, "Well, I can't wait to be a dad to another man's child," or just think about it from that mindset. But life happens, and then your partner that you find may have someone already. And for that, I couldn't think of no one else better to speak to for this subject than my guy, Mr. Damien Haywood. Appreciate having you on the podcast today, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for bringing me back on. Pleasure, man.
So let's start off from the beginning, right? I know you, right? I know you. And I know me. When we all were younger and we think about dating, we think about females, we think about, okay, if she has a kid, I might talk to her, but I never would take her serious. And then it comes a point in time where that I'm not gonna take her serious becomes, well, I really like her and we are serious. What type of mindset shift did that take for you?
I mean, you really just got to go back to kind of how my upbringing was. Like I stated before, my dad, he raised me, and I have a little brother. I also have a step brother, but I really don't look at him as a step brother because we pretty much, I met him when he was like 5 and I was 7. So my dad married his mom. So my dad became a stepfather and really was pretty much the only father that my little brother Adrian knew. I already had that role model type man in my life that, he took care of his kids and he took care of his family, which was his wife that already had a son. So, obviously when you're younger, you're really not thinking about, really for me, I wasn't really talking to any girls seriously that had kids because that was just my mindset. And but my dad told me, he said, man, as you get older and you don't have no family of your own, you're really gonna run across a lot of women that already probably have a child or two. And that goes for a woman that don't have kids and dating a man in her 30s as well. She's probably gonna run into a man that's gonna have kids, at least one. So with that being said, as I got older, I had to kind of, be conscious of that as well. Like, hey, if I start, really feeling the female, more than likely she's gonna have a child. You just have that maturity about it because one thing about it, you're not really dating her, like you're dating everything that comes with her.
Yeah.
Same for a woman. She's not dating, you're not just dating that man, you're dating everything that comes with him, which possibly could be a child.
Okay. So, did you have a conversation with your dad when you first started getting serious, or how did that go?
I mean, kind of basically, me and my dad, that's like my best friend, and we always talk about anything. It doesn't matter. No topic is off limits, and that's definitely something that he brought to my attention. Is like, hey, listen, once you start to kind of get serious with a woman, definitely a woman that has a child, you got to be able to take on that responsibility that comes with that you know. And he always said, "Listen, don't get so close to a woman that has a child if you're really not seriously into that woman, because a lot comes into dating a woman with a child." So that was some of the advice that he always gave me.
So, when it came to dating a woman with a child, it's different than your own child when it comes to like disciplinary things or just how they're raised because you're coming into this child's life as opposed to being there from day one. How do you start to integrate yourself, not just with the child, but the dynamic of I'm not just here to be here with you, but I'm here to be here with your mother.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that sometimes it really goes back to that particular woman that you're dating, and also that child's father, whether he's in a life or not. For me, it was always not you're not playing the father, you're not replacing the father. You're just adding on to everything that he already has or she already has. So that makes it easier. It's like whenever a father is in a son or daughter life and you date that particular person, that makes it easier because it's like some things that you don't have to really worry about. And also I think one of the biggest things with any type of relationship, is all about that communication. Having that communication and be like, hey, this is where we at, this is where we going at, and things of that nature.
So, how is your communication with that father?
I mean, it's cool. It's real cool because it's like I don't overstep my boundaries. And then also when it comes to the child as well, like when you dealing with a child that's a real cool and good child, it makes everything easier.
Yeah. So when you said overstep your boundaries, is that like a conversation that's held as far as what are the boundaries, or you just feel like it's innately known? Like, come on, bro, we men, we know what's good, what's bad, or
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah,
did
yeah.
that come?
Yeah, I definitely think it's like it's not no conversation that needs to be had. It's like, I let the mother handle whatever their things, let the mother handle all those type of things. That ain't on for me to do that. But one of the things that I always been, whether I've been around my little cousin, or whatever, I always instill, definitely when it comes to men, is that respect level. How to, that's one of the biggest thing is just being respectful to everyone. Growing up is one of the biggest things that my dad taught me is like, listen, man, you can show respect and you have to give respect. And that's pretty much how I am with anybody that come, like, if I have anybody that comes in my life or comes around me, I'm always just that cool, goofy dude, like to have a good time. So it's never a bad situation with me per se.
So let me ask you this: have you ever had a moment where it's like, "You're not my dad" type of thing?
Nah, never. Never. And another thing too is, like I said, I'm never trying to replace anybody. I'm always trying to add value where I can add value at. That's kind of how I always looked at myself is, and even with me growing up, I had a stepfather. My mom married when I was in high school, and he was in my life for many many years. Before they got married. And it was always one thing where he kind of taught me, like, I ain't your father that birthed you, but I'm here and I love you just the same. And it's like I can kind of, take those things that I learned from my dad, learned from my stepfather, and just try to apply it to my everyday life.
So just to piggyback off of that part a little bit, did you ever see like the interaction between like your dad and your stepfather?
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. Always, any type of basketball event, my dad came to, my stepfather was there. Any type of birthday thing, and they always was cool. And I have really my dad personality. He's really outgoing, like to have a good time. Definitely not no macho man as far as like has to be the most dominant person in the room. It's like you put your egos to the side, like. And, like I always say, when it comes to kids, you got to put your egos to the side and always do what's best for the child.
Okay. And but has that been a mindset that you've always had from the time you got into it, or was it something that like evolved after over time?
Now it's definitely something that you evolve to because like I said, definitely when you how can I put it? It's like for me, I never go in a situation thinking, hey, this is what I'm looking for, this is what's gonna happen. I like to let things flow and then you adapt as things move on.
So let me ask you this, because you said you had two different influences, because your dad was a stepdad, and then your mom also had a partner who became your stepdad. So based off of those two things, what qualities would you say makes a good stepdad?
The same qualities that makes a good father, and that's just being there, showing up, and being the leader of a man. Definitely when you're dealing with black boys. One of the biggest things that I look at is I remember I asked a lot of my homeboys, about their dad or their situation. They ain't know who their dad was, or their dad wasn't in their lives like that. So I was grateful enough to have my dad, my stepdad, my uncles,
Yeah.
that showed me, how to be a man, show me how to, be respectful, show me, hey, you know, the street life ain't for you. It ain't for everybody. You gonna do this. I never forget one of the biggest thing that I always knew as a child. I only had two things I could do after I graduated high school. That was college or the military. I wasn't
What's
staying
that?
around in my neighborhood. I wasn't staying in the city that I was in. And that was because my dad did go off to college and experience that. My stepfather did go to college and experience that. And that's kind of the things that you try to, you kind of take is, like I said, you're not trying to replace nobody. You're just trying to add value wherever you can.
Okay. And so when it comes to that relationship, do you feel like it's important to have the clear boundaries between the child and the step parent, or Is it something that you establish early between you and the child, or is it just something that's just done between the adults?
Nah, I think it just evolves. I think it's really no boundaries. I think it's the communication part really comes on the parents per se, whether it's the mom, or whether it's the dad. It's just the communication to like, hey, this is what how things gonna flow, how things gonna be, and it's the communication there. Because I feel like this: no child dictate how they are going to be raised. It's up to the parents to raise them the way that they need to be raised. I'm really one of the type of person that I'm very friendly. I'm very like really cool. I ain't no strict type of dude. I am kind of firm on certain things, but at the same time, I think there are standards that has to be met. But it ain't like it's my way or the highway. I think that communication there for everyone.
So let me ask you a question. So one thing that has been going on a lot on social media is you see it's almost like the downplay and the down talk of being a step parent. You see like the memes of like you only stepped up because you couldn't find someone of your own, or like what was the other one I saw when it said that you got suckered into it, like, or something like something along those lines. Like what do you think about when you see stuff like that, or do you even knowledge or pay attention to that stuff?
I mean, a lot of that stuff, in my personal opinion, is really harming the black community. In my personal opinion, and it's because of the simple fact that what happened to it takes a village to raise a child. What happened to when the father ain't there, the uncles got to step up. If that woman wasn't married, people, the men in the household got to step up to take, to help with that family. So I feel like it's a blessing if you're definitely in our community, and this is not just the black community. If you look at statistics across the board, a lot of, race and things of that nature, there are a lot of broken homes. That two-parent household, um, statistics is really not as strong as it should be, in my personal opinion. So when we look at that particular stats, you are going to find a lot of blended families. And if you just look at, if you just look at your own personal family, I look at my own personal family that I came from. My grandfather, he wasn't, per se my mom father, but he raised me. He raised, he stepped up major, if you look at my dad's side of the family, his father, my grandfather on that side wasn't his biological father, but that's the only grandfather that I know. So it really doesn't. I really don't pay attention to anything like that because one of the things that I'm so blessed with. I always tell people this, man. I was raised by people that genuinely love and really cater to that family, that family structure. And that's the biggest thing. You can't you can't pretty much you cannot dictate who your family is. And I'm so grateful I do have a strong family structure. And that's the only thing that I can try to strive to be is have a strong family structure of my own as well, whether it's blended family or not.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of see it kind of funny how on social media people will talk about like stepdads or like blended families when, when you look at it, like a lot of people, you got one last name, your sister got another. You know what I'm saying? But you
Yeah.
can jump on social media and say a whole lot of stuff. I would never date a woman that had a baby by another man, but you got three siblings and all of y'all got different last names and different dads. So what are you saying about your mom? It's
Yeah.
so many like stereotypes that's out there on social media that I think it starts to get a bad rap. Good stepdad is a great thing to have in the household. I mean, because I think at the end of the day, what kids want is stability and peace within the household, and
Yeah, def
that may not look like the traditional biological mom and dad, but as long as they can have that, whether it's a stepmom, stepdad, whatever, this it's going to be for the betterment of the kids.
yeah, that's definitely, I think, two is better than one.
Yeah,
Or one is better than zero. It's a lot of
yeah.
people that's out here don't have a father figure in their lives. And they're looking for that. They're looking for that in a coach. or they're looking for it, unfortunately, in the streets with gangs and things of that nature. So, when you have that opportunity to be blessed with a dad that's in your household, or blessed with a dad that's really connected to you, or blessed with a stepfather that's in your household, you got to cherish that because some people, it's so many sad stories talking about, I don't know, I wasn't raised by I was raised by women. See, that's one of the things that we see a lot now. A
Yeah.
lot of dudes saying they was raised by women, and
Yep.
I think sometimes that's some of the excuses for why they are the way they are.
Bitches. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm sorry. All right. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I got cut.
or because one of the biggest thing I always say is, how can you come from a household where your daddy wasn't there, and then you make another household where you're not even there with your kids? And I hate that mantra of,
Yeah. Yeah.
my baby mama making me do this or do that. It doesn't matter what she did, what she do. You still have to be there for your kids, whether you're in that household or not. It's a lot of excuses that people make, and that's one thing that I say. No matter what the situation is, I'm not making no excuse why I can't take care of my household, where I'm in
Yeah.
that household or not.
Yeah, and so to that, that household isn't just, your girl, your stepchild. It's also your child that you all have together as well. So how differently have you viewed your role as a stepfather now that you actually became an actual father? And that's their sibling.
Yeah, definitely. And the biggest thing is you always make sure you take care of your household. And it's like, having a child, having people that look up to you, having people that depend on you, it makes your grind be hard. It makes you go harder with your grind. It makes your mindset change from, that young boy to a mature man, because at the end of the day, you got people that depend on you. You got people that, you have to take care of. So it's like you kind of have to grow up and be mature. And one of the biggest things with me is I always knew that I wasn't gonna have a child young. Like I knew I wanted to, have a child when I was. I'm never gonna. You never gonna say you ready to have a child, but you always want to say. I always want to say, man, I want to be a little bit at least financial stable, at least in my career, and also just more psychological ready for it as well, and
Yeah.
emotional as well.
I wouldn't say you ain't had no child young though. Not at all.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's why I was saying I wasn't gonna have a child
Oh, you
young.
wasn't going to
That's
have a
why I
child young.
waited
Yeah,
until
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
You definitely didn't
yeah, I
have a
waited
child
until
young.
I was older before I had a child. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it makes it a little bit easier, because if I had a child 10 years ago and had to
yeah,
deal with some, what how my immaturity was, and it would be a whole different ball game. Conversation would probably be way different.
yeah. So have you? So I do wonder if that sibling relationship affected your relationship with your stepchild anymore. Like seeing that relationship between him and his sister.
Nah, I mean, it was always great. And then also, he's a big help with her. So it only makes it, a plus, you know what I mean? And like I said, just like how me and my little brother, we have the same dad, but not the same mom. So I know how strong of a relationship how me and my little brother and my little sister is. And that's the only thing that I will hope for them to be. And one of the things I always say is, I tell him, just like I tell my girl, my daughter, like, hey, y'all got to stay connected with each other, because y'all are brothers and sisters. Y'all, you take care of each other.
Yeah, and so like that's a great thing. You be able to step into that role, and as men, you two can come together and realize what's the betterment for the children. Like because that it shouldn't be
Yeah.
a betterment between like feelings between a failed relate anything like that. Like you are now in the house. You're not there to be dad, but you're there to be the male representation of what things should look like. And they're accepting of it, and y'all accepting of each other. So that is a great thing. That's a great thing to see.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
social,
Definitely. Definitely.
like social media hates to. I will say this: social media hates stepdads, right? But they be the same people that be complaining about there's no man in the house, so or there's no fathers around, and so you gotta pick and choose. Like you can't
Yeah.
you can't
Definitely
say
got to
there's
pick
no
and
father
choose.
there, and then when someone else is there to step up, you want to laugh at her and make fun of them. Like that shit just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. I mean, we need more men to step up, not only just taking care of other people's kids, but taking care of their own kids, man. That's the biggest thing is like we should always like, you should be a role model to every young person that you come in contact with, whether it's your niece, your nephews, your little cousins. They should
It's
kind
true.
of see the representation of how powerful a black man can be, and a black man that take care of his family can be as well.
That's perfect. I mean, I think there's nothing else to say after that outside of thank you, man. I appreciate your time. And we're gonna get you back on the podcast with something else too. Episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. I know you liked what you saw. So what I need for you to do is go back and look at past episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page, Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. And you can follow us on all social media at Just My Baby Daddy Pod.